Chapter 11 Depraved Slave Saintess Xian, 3, R18 You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shenlai looked very serious when he had suggested that he would bang Saintess Xianxian's chrysanthemum. Saintess Xianxian immediately put up a spirited fight. Why do you want to do that for? Shenlai frowned softly. It is because you are my depraved slave, and as my depraved slave, I have no other choice but to go to hell. Saintess Xianxian interrupted him impolitely. What books have you been reading? Shenlai stammered, I didn't learn it from any books. How the heck did she know about it? Saintess Xianxian warned him impolitely, if you want to try that, go try that with your Xiao. I have already tried it. Shenlai interrupted with pride in his eyes. She seems excited in that region than the proper one. You should try it. Saintess Xianxian. If you dare to touch me there, I am severing my relationship with you, and I mean it with all my Tao heart. Shenlai was startled. Xian, you can't do that. We have just formed a master-slave relationship with each other. I can't have you backing off from this relationship. After all, you have volunteered yourself for it. Saintess Xianxian hummed softly, I mean it seriously. And why do you want so many depraved slaves for? Shenlai answered with great honesty, I am practicing to take vengeance on the 7 of you. If you do not submit to my Carnation Goddess painting, then I have to play rough. Saintess Xianxian muttered something incoherent. You should have played rough 100 years ago. But she said firmly with her alluring defiance eyes, you sound like you want to collect as many depraved slaves as possible so that you can paint a carnal goddess painting instead. Shenlai frowned softly, that is a little too low. Carnation means flower, and I am picking a flower goddess among the 7 of you to be my one and only Carnation Goddess. This, carnal, is a very bad word to use. How can I choose a carnal goddess to be my consort? As he said that, he could not resist the attempt to cup Saintess Xianxian's lovely bouncing balls, and he was also playing with her 2 nipples. Then he saw that she had spurted her dew and honey on him. Saintess Xianxian looked awkward with embarrassment all of a sudden. Her flustered looks were really beautiful in Shenlai's eyes, and he saw the redness on the ground that had been spilled from her loss of chastity. So he felt pitiful for her, and moreover, he did not want to lose Xianxian. So he said gently, all right then, not the backyard but. Saintess Xianxian lowered her glances with great shyness, thank you. Then there was a faint smile on her alluring countenance, Shenlai, you are lucky that you have met me first. The others are not as easy to talk with compared to me. Shenlai said softly, but there were disbeliefs in his eyes, surely not. I feel that you are the hardest to talk with. I have given you so many last chances to become my Carnation Goddess, but you have refused me. Shenlai. Saintess Xianxian had interrupted him angrily, you have 7 saintesses to choose from, to be your one and only Carnation Goddess, and you have never even chosen one or given us any hints about your intentions. You're not choosing 7 Carnation Goddesses but only one. So have you decided who will be your Carnation Goddess after so many years? Shenlai explained as though this was the great Tao of fairness, I have to be very fair to all of you or else I will hurt the other 6 saintesses. As for who can become my Carnation Goddess, alas, it is so hard for me to decide. After all these years, I am still unable to capture the perfection of all 7 of you in my Carnation Goddess painting. Now with you gone from the picture, I am afraid that I have to restart all over again. Saintess Xianxian. Saintess Xianxian. Saintess Xianxian. She was actually thinking. Luckily, I am out first. Shenlai is just playing the fool out of all of us. You seem to have a lot of time, do you? She could not resist making a cold snide. Shenlai shrugged his shoulders as he replied gently, I am an immortal cultivator and the first to reach the pinnacle. Therefore, I have plenty of time to create a utopia Tao for the Fenghua Great Continent. Saintess Xianxian could not bear to listen anymore, so she interrupted him by kissing him mouth to mouth, take that, you stupid fool. Shenlai found himself holding her perfectly white slender body that were dripping with her fragrant sweat, and the two of them were embracing together as they copulated. Saintess Xianxia moaned softly with great ecstasy as she sunk her fingernails on Shenlai's back as the two of them began to shake together. Today her jade had finally been broken by Shenlai and she was shimmering with tears. While she was swaying wildly with his penetration deep into her, she could feel that he was touching her flower petal and that she was also climaxing one round after another. She began to woefully think of the past. 500 years ago, Shenlai had suddenly appeared in front of her when she was still a young maiden of 13. He had said, "You will be a great peerless maiden in the future. I will make you into a saintess. So follow me and to cultivate." Back then she had said to him, "But I need to ask my parents." But Shenlai laughed softly, "Leave it to me. From now on, you will follow me and I will show you the world. So far, I have made 99 profound treasures of unimagined power. Soon, I will start on my last profound treasure, the Carnation Goddess painting. As my saintess, naturally you will have a chance to be my Carnation Goddess. So do you want to join me?" As a young maiden, she nodded eagerly. "I will join you. And what is a saintess?" Shenlai laughed softly. "A saintess is a powerful cultivator. Even for me, I have my own limitations to raise you to a position that is higher than a saintess. But you need to know this. I am Grand Sage Saint Shenlai and I am the greatest cultivator in Fenghua Great Continent. Nothing is impossible for me." Saintess Xianxia could not believe that when his soon would be 400 years later and that he was ever so patient. The most damning thing about Grand Sage Saint Shenlai was that he was a perfectionist and he was also shameless too. She had asked him how old he was, but he simply smiled and said, "I am young." His reply was always extremely lame and secretive. However, Xianxia knew him inside out, better than he knew himself. For 3 days and 3 nights, they were copulating in the Great Maiden Sanctuary Hall. No one knew what was happening in there and the gossips began to fly. Everyone could imagine Shenlai getting slaughtered by Saintess Xianxia. As for Elder Xianxia, she was worried that Shenlai would spill their beans out after getting tortured by Saintess Xianxia and she would soon be put to the death. She was regretting her acquaintanceship with Shenlai now. Chapter 12 Secret Conspiracy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Elder Xianxia and Fairy Yushuwen had left the Great Maiden Sanctuary Hall, along with the other female elders, as everyone displayed looks of bewilderment in their eyes, they had bumped into each other again. It may look like a coincidence, but it was not. It was because Fairy Yushuwen had purposely bumped into Elder Xianxia. The astonishing beautiful heavenly fairness of the Fairy Yushuwen had never failed to impress upon Elder Xianxia, for she was very fair as though she had always been sheltered from the sun. Elder Xianxia quickly apologized, "Fairy Yushuwen, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't watch where I am going." "It is all right. Really." Fairy Yushuwen displayed a most innocent faint smile. "You know, I just feel that something is weird inside the Great Maiden Sanctuary Hall. Do you not think so as well?" Elder Xianxia looked perplexed. "Why do you say so?" Fairy Yushuwen gave a small hum before she smiled with a beautiful look upon Elder Xianxia. "Alas. I've treated you like a close sister, so I am sharing this with you. If the Saintess Xianxia wants to punish anyone, does she need to punish an individual personally? We do have our punishment elders. All we need is to send a report to her." Elder Xianxia was absolutely loyal to Saintess Xianxia and to her celestial clan, the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. So, she had never thought of questioning her orders. "What you have said made a little sense. Maybe our Saintess is just concerned about the severity of this issue. After all, breaking the defense array of the inner court isn't any joking matter." Fairy Yushuwen displayed a soft chuckle and her thin eyebrows seemed to be smiling as well. But what if an important elder of the Holy Maiden Sanctuary is the real traitor? And she has the intention of finding out about this. Do you not agree that our Saintess Xianxia isn't someone who can be easily fooled? Elder Hua Zixia began to tremble a little as she looked at Fairy Yushuan with a weird look. What do you mean? It is common knowledge that you are the one that have brought that good.4. Shen Lai into the Holy Maiden Sanctuary yesterday. If he is in trouble, you won't be able to get out of this trouble untouched. If you know what I mean. Fairy Yushuan smiled with several meaningful glances at Elder Hua Zixia. Elder Hua Zixia said with trembling lips, I didn't teach Shen Lai how to break into our defense array. I can swear to my Tao soul heart that this really isn't me. Our saintess is someone who is the sword of justice and she will judge with righteousness. I can't be sure on this, Fairy Yushuan interrupted softly, especially after what you have done last night. I saw you and Shen Lai in that pool. I was there. This time Elder Hua Zixia was startled and she had taken 3 steps back. Fairy Yushuan smiled faintly but coldly before she chuckled softly, don't worry. I will surely help you to keep this a secret. When Elder Hua Zixia had heard her, she looked a little relieved. However, Fairy Yushuan was suddenly sighing softly. Our saintess Xianxia isn't someone who can be easily fooled. So, you have to first survive through this crisis. If you are able to survive, then I shall help you to keep this secret of yours and also your affair with an outer court protégé. What do you say about this? Elder Hua Zixia trembled in her lovely form before she asked softly, why are you helping me? Surely it isn't for free. What is your price? By now, Fairy Yushuan was returning a wry smile. Why are you so smart? The beautiful Hua Zixia indeed deserves to be an elder of the inner court and soon to be a direct protégé of the saintess Xianxia. It is no wonder why that beautiful-looking young man Shen Lai has succumbed into your charms. She paused to sigh softly, as you know, our Fenghua great continent isn't an entirely too peaceful place. There are frequent attacks by the desolate monsters and other fierce races that seek the destruction of humanity. Humanity has been driven up to the mountains now. Even though we are numerous, but what is the use? We can't claim back our plain lands or the desolate mists where the monsters have come from. We do have 7 saintesses who represent the 7 holy lands of our struggle against the demonic races. But they are all disunited and the celestial clans are constantly fighting against one another for more spiritual mountains. Elder Hua Zixia disagreed, for tens of thousands of years, this is the existing status quo. It is only when the 7 saintesses have descended to us that humanity now have a fighting chance. Although things are still messy now, we have 7 powerful influences now to fight against the demonic races. She began to tremble. In the past, much of humanity is the depraved slaves of the demonic races. We have a hard-won victory against the demonic races because we don't have a lot of strong cultivators. Now we have the 7 saintesses who have the profound might to keep the peace for us. Anyway, what do you want with me? Elder Hua Zixia had suddenly gone back to the most important question that she had. She did not want to waste time to argue ideals with the Fairy Yushuan, and moreover the walls have ears. Fairy Yushuan smiled with great gentleness, easy. I want you to be my subordinate here. In the future I will surely be able to establish my own holy land and be a true saintess. Therefore, I am in need of a strong cultivator like yourself to help me. I can even give you a celestial clan for you to lead. Then she softly said, and I want to know the secrets of that Carnation Goddess painting. She had heard Shen Lai threatening to replace Saintess Xianxia with her for his Carnation Goddess painting. When Shen Lai had said that, there was a twitch in Saintess Xianxia's countenance, even though the Saintess Xianxia had quickly composed herself, but she did not fail to notice it immediately. The Saintess Xianxia had replied to Shen Lai, you dare. And then she had asked everyone to be out of the Great Maiden Sanctuary Hall. Therefore, there must be something unspeakable about this Carnation Goddess painting, and it must definitely be a cultivation profound treasure. She had a reason for thinking so. It was because 100 years ago, 7 powerful saintesses had suddenly descended on the Fenghua great continent and no one knew about their origins or how they could have cultivated to such a high cultivation realm. Author notes. 1. Just received this, thanks everyone winky face. Congrats. Novel recommended on your hard work has paid off. Your book will be recommended on too. As I am still a little short of the 15k words, this book can't be reviewed yet. Sorry I'm slow. 3. This book will be free to read and will be unlocked. 4. I know the readers are expecting a linear attack uproot. But no, there will be a mystery and the story will twist around just like in The Romantic Cultivator. Chapter 13 1000 contribution points. You are listening at novelfull.audio. All the female elders of the Holy Maiden Sanctuary were looking at the gates of the Great Maiden Sanctuary Hall for the past 3 days, but there were no indication of any movements from the Great Hall. The interrogation would actually take this long. Among them was naturally Elder Xianxia, who was also watching nervously at the gates of the Great Maiden Sanctuary Hall, for she was afraid that Xianxia may betray her. And after listening to Fairy Yuyuan, she had now been converted to being her mole. Fairy Yuyuan was frank with her as she said with her usual faint smile, I am going to the other holy lands soon to win support for myself. Naturally, if you are in trouble, my heavenly lofty peaks will be glad to accept you as my elder. That is, if you are able to make the correct choice now. You can't expect me to give you a helping hand when you're in trouble and reject me when you are not, am I right? This is a fair exchange. Elder Xianxia felt that she had no other choice because Fairy Yuyuan also knew of her secret affair with Xianxia. Hence, she had agreed to be her mole and they had signed a secret spirit contract as proof. This secret spirit contract was actually a simple contract of their agreement and not a master-servant spirit contract. If Xianxia could not stay in the Holy Maiden Sanctuary anymore, Fairy Yuyuan would open her heavenly lofty peaks to her. This was all the motivation that Elder Xianxia needed to convert to Fairy Yuyuan's side, for it was assurances that she actually needed. In fact, she was quite grateful that Fairy Yuyuan was willing to come to her aid at the risk of offending the Saintess Xianxia. Inside the Great Maiden Sanctuary Hall, for the past 3 days, Xianxia and Saintess Xianxia did nothing but copulated together. It was a little too much for Xianxia to bear, for he had never thought that Saintess Xianxia would be so eager to be his depraved slave and not be tired. 1 day had gone by. 2 days had gone by. 3 days had gone by. Finally, Xianxia smiled weakly, Fian, I should go now. You know, before anyone suspect us of our relationship. Saintess Xianxia rolled her golden eyes. She was not about to allow Xianxia to let go of her naked body. But in the end, she knew that they were playing too hard and it had already been 3 days. She was also beginning to wonder what her protégés would think about their saintess. No matter what, she would never let Xianxia go to the other saintesses to complete his stupid Carnation Goddess painting. So, she smiled with heartfelt allure to Xianxia, you should go back to the outer court now and to start earning your contribution points for our celestial clan. Also you should clean up this place first. Xianxia was horrified as he gave a startled reply, Shina Niku. What did you just say? You're not a transmigrator, aren't you? The Saintess Xianxia stared at him with her alluring looks. Xianxia muttered weakly, 47291. Saintess Xianxia slapped him hard on his head, speak properly. Xianxia straightened his back, but his eyes were still staring delicious at the trembling boobs in front. Aren't you supposed to be my depraved slave while I am your master? Saintess Xianxia waved her slender right hand as she got up, go clean this place up before I am officially severing my ties with you. Xianxia protested softly, you're now my depraved slave and I am your master. No way am I going to clean up this place or to earn any contribution points. We are over. Saintess Xianxia hummed softly as she started to turn around her bare dripping coily back as she walked away. You have taken my chastity and leave it as evidences all over the place. Aren't you shameless? Or you are expecting me to clean up my personal mess and your mess. Xianxia pondered for a while as he muttered, this makes a little sense. All right then. I shall use my undying profound fire to destroy all the evidences. Then he started to raise his fingers to muster his profound energy as a flaming fireball was seen in his hands. Don't damage my floor or burn down my great maiden sanctuary hall. Saintess Xianxia quickly reminded him. Shenlai. With a soft sigh, he changed the flaming fireball into a black fireball and it was sucking all the liquids that were on the ground. When he was done, he threw the black fireball out of the great maiden sanctuary hall through an opening at the top of the great hall and there was a splashing sound. Saintess Xianxia gasped, "What did you just do?" Shenlai returned a perplexed look, "I am throwing all our evidences to the pool outside. You told me not to damage this hall." Saintess Xianxia. Saintess Xianxia. Saintess Xianxia. Do you know that you just polluted the pool outside with our filth? Do you want everyone to see our filth? Go to hell, Shenlai. Saintess Xianxia was so angry that she was kicking Shenlai with her white naked legs. Don't ever let me see you ever again. Shenlai gasped, "Is that 3 ever that you have just used?" Just as he was about to step forward to embrace her, Saintess Xianxia said coldly to him by holding him back. Don't come close to me until you have 1,000 contribution points. Now scram. Shenlai looked a little dumbfounded, 1,000 contribution points isn't too hard, right? Then he was muttering weakly, wait a minute. I am the master while she is my depraved slave. How come she isn't listening to me? Saintess Xianxia was smiling as she had put on a new robe to cover her top and she was also pulling a new skirt to cover the shyness of her maiden contour. She hummed softly when she noticed that Shenlai was staring between her long and flawless legs while he was muttering. What are you looking at? Now, get out of here or I'm severing my relationship with you. I am only free this time for you. If you want to have me, you have to pay me 1,000 contribution points. Shenlai laughed softly, this is all too easy for me. Just you wait and I will make you my depraved slave every day. Author note. 1. Story has some unexpected turns here. Laugh. Chapter 14 Sage Saintess Xianxia. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Many of the female elders were actually meditating outside the great maiden sanctuary hall when something like a dark fireball had suddenly dropped into the scenic lake and polluted it with some filthy stuff. Everyone was horrified. What is this filthy thing and smell? There are blood in there. Is it Shenlai? Don't be ridiculous. It has to be Shenlai and can't be our saintess. Among them was also Elder Xianxia. She had actually returned to the entrance of the great maiden sanctuary hall after the conversation with Fairy Yuyuan. All this while, she was looking extremely uneasy as she was anxious about what Shenlai would reveal to Saintess Xianxia. All of a sudden Saintess Xianxia had opened the gates of the great maiden sanctuary hall and she looked even more alluring than before. It was as though there was a divine glow in her countenance now. As she appeared, she had also pushed out Shenlai who was muttering incoherently to himself. Fian, you didn't wear any panties, your skirt is too short and you are flashing your. Saintess Xianxia smiled with a new radiance and she looked particularly cheerful. This coupled with her peerless appearance only caused her to appear even more alluring than ever before. After interrogating this new outer court protégé for 3 days, I found out that he is really innocent. He had found a minor loophole in our defense array by an accident and had accidentally barged into the inner court. And he has promised me not to repeat this mistake again. As he is new, I shall forgive him. Shenlai was startled. When did I promise not to go into the inner court again? Even Elder Xianxia was stunned. Shenlai is innocent. Then I am not going to be punished. Even Fairy Yuyuan was startled. She is not punishing this Shenlai. Is it because of the Carnation Goddess painting? Saintess Xianxia chuckled softly, but of course we are going to punish him. Fairy Yuyuan thought. So, he is going to be punished after all. He shall be given 1 black mark. And he needs to complete 1,000 contribution points for the Celestial Clan free of charge. After he has completed the 1,000 contribution points, bring him to me for his performance evaluation. Saintess Xianxia chuckled for a while before she displayed an alluring smile at everyone. Shenlai was thinking. One black mark. How many black marks to be kicked out of the celestial clan? This so terrible. She is so horrible to me. Elder Xianxia and many of the female elders were thinking. 1,000 contribution points. This is too insane, he is doomed. Saintess Xianxia raised a wry smile as she took a glance at Shenlai before she said to her female elders, take this protege Shenlai away. Make sure that he is always kept busy and ensure that he always have lots of contribution points coming in. Many of the elders were thinking. Keep the contribution points coming in to this Shenlai. That mean that he will be given plenty of hard cultivation missions. But they quickly answered, yes Saintess. Saintess Xianxia waved her fingers as she dismissed them, now go. As Elder Xianxia, Fairy Yuyuan and the other female elders took their leave by taking away Shenlai, Saintess Xianxia was secretly delighted. It was because an outer protege would only get 4 contribution point a month and an extra 1 contribution point for good behavior every month. Therefore, if Shenlai did not do his missions, then he would need between 200 to 250 months depending on his good performances. Also, there was never a male cultivator that could be promoted to an inner court protege. So, he was screwed. This isn't so hard. Shenlai, you are saying just now. Hee. You're gonna be surprised. Saintess Xianxia rolled her golden eyes with delightful bliss as she paced around the steps of the great maiden sanctuary hall. There were 2 things that she had to do. Firstly, she could not afford to let the existence of Shenlai be known to the other 6 saintesses. Secondly, she had to keep Shenlai in her holy maiden sanctuary as long as possible. At least until she could get pregnant with his child. When that happens, she would have won the title of the Carnation Goddess anyway. Just thinking of the second part, she was particularly delightful. Then her phoenix-thin eyebrows began to furrow lightly. She now had a love rival in Elder Xianxia. And also, she had noticed that Shenlai was looking at Fairy Yuyuan with great interest and he had the intention to make her into a saintess of his stupid Carnation Goddess painting. And she also had a most beautiful protege who was not presented today and she was at the revolving core cultivation realm. They were all her potential love rivals that she must be wary. All of a sudden, she had a terrible headache as she displayed a not-so-delighted expression in her countenance. All of a sudden, she was flushing. It was because she had suddenly noticed that her robe was opened and she had flashed her boobs to everyone. It was no wonder why Shenlai was staring at her and not the others. No wonder he was suddenly so docile all of a sudden. All of a sudden, she was swaying and there was a pain in her abdominal. Her alluring golden eyes were wide-opened all of a sudden with disbelief. I am about to break through to the Sage Saintess cultivation realm. She was smiling with great delight, so he is my heart demon all these years that caused my cultivation to stop at the Saintess level. If I can be the first to attain my cultivation to the Sage Saintess level, then won't I be the strongest among the 7 of us? All the more I can't let them obtain Shenlai or they would all not only become my love rivals but have the possibility of attaining to the Sage Saintess level. Then she had made up a new decision. She was not going to ally with Saintess Qian Yufeng of the Verdant Rain Manor anymore. Over her dead body. Author note. 1. Crowley can hit 15k words by next chapter to activate the reviews option Winky Face. Chapter 15 Nangong Shu, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Barely had Shenlai returned to the outer court when he was informed that he would have his own lodging at the outskirt of the outer court. In other words, a deserted fridge which was not even close to the Holy Maiden Sanctuary at all. Many of the outer court protégés were now laughing at him and were saying, this is his punishments. Naturally Shenlai was not someone who was picky and he was glad that he got his own personal space for himself. Instead, he started to ask Elder Li Hong who was accompanying him back, beautiful Elder Li Hong, how much contribution points can I get passively a month? As for Elder Xianxia and Fairy Yuyuan, although they did not accompany him back, but both had been discreet in looking at him closely before they left for other matters and were quite startled that there was not a single wound on him. So where did the blood and the filth had come from? Elder Li Hong smiled. You will get 4 contribution points as your allowance every month. If you behave good, you will get 1 extra contribution point a month. However, as you just got a black mark, you won't get any extra contribution points for half a year. Shenlai. 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 I can surely gain more contribution points by taking on the sex missions. Am I right? Elder Li Hong smiled. That's right. But you are still new. After you have mastered your foundations, we will allow you to go for your sex mission. After all, didn't you hear it yourself that our saintess want you to start earning your contribution points as soon as possible, as a penance for the Holy Maiden Sanctuary? She had suddenly handed over a map to him. This is only a crude map. Now go to your lodging immediately and clean it out while it is still not yet nightfall. As the place is vacant for some time, you will have a plenty of cleaning work to do. Shenlai. I need to do my own cleaning. This is the worst thing that can happen to me. But as he had no other choice, he was forced to set off immediately because Elder Li Hong had threatened him with an inspection tomorrow. And if he did not do so, then Saintess Xianxia would not be seeing him again. Soon he was walking in the airy mountains outside the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. His lodging was actually quite far away and he would probably be the first line of defense against any desolate beasts or enemy cultivators. All of a sudden, he had spotted a demure maiden walking rapidly through the mountains. She was really breathtaking beautiful and her countenance was coy. Shenlai saw that she was wearing an open robe with a one-piece white thin bodice that started from her upper bosoms and ended at her beautiful slender thighs. The bodice could not hide her beautiful body and he could see her perks being displayed and even her white panties below her short skirt. As this was a one-piece bodice, he could easily pull it off and expose her naked body save for her panties. This maiden was actually the Nangong Shu, the right protector of Saintess Xianxia, and was a revolving core cultivator. Not only that, she was also in the top 12 extraordinary great beauty list along with Fairy Yu Yuan. Shenlai gasped. Hua Zixia is already astonishing enough, but she is actually more astonishing than her. Moreover, she is also as peerless as Fairy Yu Yuan. With that he had suddenly popped in front of her and said politely, "This beautiful sister, where are you going? I happen to be a protege of the Holy Maiden Sanctuary and I can lead the way for you." Nangong Shu was startled when she saw Shenlai. What a beautiful man! But she quickly took a keen look at him and asked wryly with a soft chuckle, "You seem to be new, for I have never seen you before. Also, you are an outer court protege. What is your name?" Shenlai blinked as he looked at his robe which was given to him when he had first joined the sect. "I am Shenlai and I am new. I have just joined the Holy Maiden Sanctuary just 4.5 days ago. Do you know who I am?" teased Nangong Shu. Shenlai replied gently with a little excitement, "Such a peerless maiden must have come down from the heavens. I don't think that you are a mortal maiden but a celestial maiden." Nangong Shu was suddenly coyly flushing. "Nonsense. I am Nangong Shu, the right protector of your Saintess Xianxia, and I have a lofty status in the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. Therefore, as an outer court protege, you have to pay me your respects." Shenlai blinked his eyes. "You are also from the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. And my senior protege sister." "That is right." Nangong Shu smiled coyly. "I am now on my way back from a secret mission for our saintess. Junior protege brother, work hard in your cultivation and your future will be boundless. When there is a chance, I will take you to fight the demonic races and the desolate beasts." Instead of acknowledging her advice, Shenlai looked a little woeful that she was going off so soon. So he said with a soft sad tone, "It is so sad that my senior protege sister is leaving so soon. Do you know that you have really such a beautiful delicate legs? He was actually trying to say he was imagining the delicate buds of her holy lands between her snow-white slender legs under her short skirt, and the lush grass under her waist would look like. But he had decided to keep these lewd thoughts to himself. Nangong Shu was slightly startled that Shenlai had suddenly said his admiration for her, and this was the very first time that a male cultivator had dared to say something so ridiculous. Not even the young masters that were courting her dared to mutter such outrageous things to her. All of a sudden, she saw that Shenlai had walked next to her and he was inhaling heavily on her scented startled face. We may never see each other again after this. I wonder if senior protege's sister will be willing to allow me to look at your legs for just a while. Shenlai sighed softly. As Nangong Shu looked into his eyes, she surprised herself by saying with a deep flush. All right, but only for a little while, but no touching. There is no harm in letting this junior brother admired for a while, right? After all, I'm also a revolving core cultivator as well. Almost as soon as she had said that out, she had regretted it. Then Shenlai had suddenly pulled her away. Come, let's go into somewhere discreet like the forest over there. Nangong Shu was startled. We are going somewhere else. Author Note 1. Please download Chapter 14 again for new lines and some edits along the way. Chapter 16 Nangong Shu, 2, R18 You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shenlai had taken Nangong Shu to a dense forest where they were hidden from view. At first Nangong Shu had wanted to question him why they were here, but she had quickly realized that this place was a better choice, or it would be awkward if the other proteges saw this. Shenlai had suddenly said to her, "You really have the most delightful sinful legs." Nangong Shu was suddenly flushing coyly. It is only for a little while. She gasped all of a sudden when Shenlai had gently placed her facing a tree while he was admiring her naked white thigh from behind and he was kneeling down. All of a sudden Nangong Shu was startled and her flush deepened. It was because she had suddenly realized that Shenlai was looking at her scenery of her white panties from below. Because she had earlier promised him, so it was not possible for her Tao heart to say no immediately to him. After all, he was just looking and not doing anything. All of a sudden, he was lifting her short skirt up and she was flashing her white panties for him to appreciate her half-nakedness. Shenlai, what are you doing? Nangong Shu was startled when he had suddenly lifted her skirt up. Shenlai said in low voice to her without blinking his eyes as he looked into her naked legs, "Please let me have a closer look at you. Your delicate leg is really so beautiful to look upon." Nangong Shu looked away from the shame, but there was a slight excitement in her flush. She was worried that he may think of her as a whore. But she thought, there was no one here. So as long as he did not hurt her, she was fine with him looking at her delicate legs. Shenlai suddenly said, "Can I get a better look?" Nangong Shu looked at him with a perplexed look. "Your robe is in the way," Shenlai sighed softly. Nangong Shu was startled that her robe was in the way, so she let it slide down her snowy shoulders. "Is this better now?" Shenlai nodded, but he quickly said, "Your skirt is in the way now." Nangong Shu was surprised at his audacity, but to her surprise, she shyly shook the belt of her thin bodice and let her flimsy bodice slip down to the ground, leaving only her white panties on her. Then she quickly covered her bosom shyly. "Is this better now?" She did not want to expose her nipples to him to give him any bad ideas. But she was now exposing her bare back to him and she could feel that he was looking at the contour of her back. Shenlai was someone who you gave him an inch, he would take a mile. He immediately started to lick her thigh and his hands were on her naked butt. Nangong Shu was startled as she turned to look panicky at him. "You say you won't touch me. You promised to just look at me. Why are you touching me?" But Shenlai was wrapping her waist with one hand and the other hand was touching her thighs up and down, pinching her as he rubbed his backs back and forth. All of a sudden Nangong Shu felt that her body was heating up and she felt the wetness between her legs. She was a chaste maiden and she could not stand this assault. So she moaned weakly, "Shenlai, stop. Stop what you are doing. You are too much." But Shenlai did not appear to hear her and he was already kissing her wet white panties. She began to protest feebly as her own wetness overwhelmed her from below. What are you doing? Don't do this. I didn't promise you to do this. Take your hands away. At this moment, she had forgotten that she was a revolving core cultivator while Shenlai was just a lowly cultivator. And she had also forgotten that this was actually the very first time that she had met Shenlai. Shenlai did not speak but he had pulled the edge of her panties aside and had exposed her maiden scenery to him. And then he was putting his fingers on her exposed maiden scenery as he dug out the mountain dews and the nectars from within. Nangong Shu was shocked that Shenlai was now trying to penetrate her using his fingers, so she turned around to stop him. But Shenlai had suddenly stroked her back to suck upon her exposed nipples as she turned around, all this while still playing with her wet bottom. Seeing that he was now caressing her bosoms, Nangong Shu was trembling with shock. But his rough touch as he squeezed her breasts were giving her an intense ecstasy that was so unreasonable that her thighs were now flowing down with her spring water. She tried to dodge his touches and kisses but somehow she could not, and she had suddenly lost control of herself as itchy current transmitted to the lower part of her body, causing her to be even wetter. Then Shenlai had pulled down her soaking wet white panties to her feet. Nangong Shu tried to cover her bosoms and her scenery involuntarily and she dared not look at him anymore. She was hoping that he would suddenly stop and it was enough, but Shenlai had suddenly removed her panties from her feet and had stuffed it into her demure mouth. Then he had spread her two legs wide opened and he was entering into her, exposing her butt and the two most forbidden sceneries of a woman to him. When Shenlai was pushing into her, Nangong Shu began to make lewd moans and she was intoxicated with the pleasures of his touches. Don't stop, Shenlai, she muttered with the stuffed panties in her mouth. This was what she had said and she would not believe that she was suddenly a wanton maiden that was begging a lowly cultivator not to stop banging a high-level cultivator like her at this moment. Shenlai was not polite to a chaste maiden like Nangong Shu and soon there were spurts of mountain dews and nectar all over the place. She had climaxed multiple times as he violently entered into her. At the same time Shenlai was holding onto her breasts and turning it into a melon shape as he gripped them tightly. Nangong Shu could feel the back and forth of his movements as her waist was hugged by him as she was teased and trampled by this Shenlai. In the end, she muttered a soft protest with her panties in her mouth, "Be gentle please. I am still a chaste maiden." Shenlai had suddenly seen your protégé sister Nangong Shu, there is still your other bud to explore. Nangong Shu opened her golden eyes widely to protest but Shenlai was already shoving into her other bud. Chapter 17 Nangong Shu, 3, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Nangong Shu seemed to be sobered all of a sudden as she pushed Shenlai away, not there. She was suddenly gasping and was flushing hotly as she stared at Shenlai. Shenlai gasped softly to himself. It seems that cultivators of the higher cultivation realm do not like this and they are fiercely resistant to it. This isn't in the books that I've read. Quietly, he had decided not to try it anymore on cultivators that are higher than the revolving core cultivation realm. Secretly, he resolved to perfect his charms so that eventually he could turn even a Saintess cultivation realm cultivator like Saintess Xianxia into his depraved slave in the future. So, he set himself a time limit of 500 years. This isn't that long. He believed that Saintess Xianxia would eventually succumb to his charm after 500 years. With that, he was looking very pleased with himself. There was no way her cultivation realm would suddenly improve over the next 1,000 years, so she would definitely be his depraved slave. Nangong Shu was looking at Shenlai with a weird look now as she slowly coughed out the panties in her mouth. She gasped softly and there was shimmering tears in her demure countenance. You look like an innocent protégé but I didn't think that you will actually be such a badass. Shenlai immediately said with some awkwardness, I'm so sorry. It actually hurt him especially when a maiden was in tears in front of him. So he quickly smiled politely, Senior protégé sister, don't be sad. Do you want to come to my abode? Nangong Shu flushed and slowly nodded as she quickly grabbed her body bodice at the same time. Then when Shenlai had dressed up, she grabbed hold of him to say quietly. It's good that you have a lodging in the outer fridge of the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. In the future. She began to fluster shyly before she said coyly, in the future, it will be more convenient for us to meet, don't you think so? Shenlai smiled, I think so too as well. Nangong Shu nodded shyly, you are my first man. So from today onward, you are my man. As long as I am alive, I won't choose another person as my man. I will be yours forever. Shenlai was startled that this was the first time that someone had ever told him this, so he felt more awkward than usual, but he was also listening attentively. Nangong Shu began to look at him with a heartfelt affection, I like to know how many maidens that you have before me. Shenlai blinked his eyes. This would be awkward if he told her that she was only his third maiden and that he had actually banged the other two only in the past few days. So he answered, 300. Nangong Shu gasped with shock, are you sure? When Shenlai saw her expression, he had misunderstood her and he quickly said with great awkwardness, actually it is 3,000. He quickly resolved to himself that he must bang 3,000 maidens as soon as possible or his lies would quickly be exposed. Nangong Shu was dumbfounded, you look so young. Are there that many maidens anyway? Or you are not even sparing the very young, the old, the widows and the courtesans. Shenlai chuckled weakly, although I am very young but I am actually a grand sage saint. You may call me grand sage saint Shenlai. There was a soft chuckle from Nangong Shu, if you are a demonic cultivator then I will believe you. But not for a human cultivator because it is impossible. It is said that the demonic race had 3 most formidable grand demon monarchs, which is our equivalent of a human grand sage saint. Shenlai raised his finger to shook lightly while saying softly, no, no. Actually, humanity isn't that weak. We do have one human grand sage saint. Nangong Shu hummed softly, you mean that mythical human grand sage saint that we have 10,000 years ago. He is but a scholar and he can't even fight. Or else why do you think humanity is now living in the mountains and not in the plain lands? That mythical grand sage saint is probably dead by now. Actually. Shenlai began to protest weakly, that mythical grand sage saint must have his reasons. Nangong Shu hummed softly as she cuddled to Shenlai, I really don't want to talk about that good. Nothing mythical grand sage saint. He may not even exist at all. We have the 7 saintesses now to fight against the demonic races now. Isn't it better for us now? Shenlai had suddenly kept quiet. I have better don't tell her that I am seeking vengeance on the 7 saintesses yet or I won't live to see the sun tomorrow. As they walked together, Nangong Shu shyly asked him all of a sudden. Which maidens are with you, in the Holy Maiden Sanctuary? Shenlai laughed softly, Elder Hua Zixia and Saintess Xingfeiyue. And maybe Fairy Yu Shuwen in the future. Nangong Shu. You're lying. You have just named all the lofty great beauties in the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. Then Nangong Shu turned solemn as she said melancholically, you mustn't have any forms of disrespect for our saintess. And you don't even dream of lifting even one finger on her. She is someone that is out of reach for you and for most of the mortal cultivators. Do you get me? If you dare to touch her with your fingers, I can promise you that you will lose all the fingers that you have used to touch her. Shenlai began to stare blankly at his 10 fingers. Fian is indeed very fierce. Maybe she is the one that have ruined my cultivation core. Nangong Shu said quietly, I will take this as only a joke. But please do not repeat it ever again. All of a sudden, she was smiling as she caught sight of the small lodging which was to be Shenlai's abode. So this is your place. Shenlai was also smiling with great delight, senior protégé sister, you don't mind if you can help me to clean my abode. I know that you are not only beautiful but kind-hearted as well. Nangong Shu. Nangong Shu. Nangong Shu. Chapter 18 Nangong Shu, 4, R18 You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shenlai was amazed by Nangong Shu and he felt as though he had been bullying her. It was because she had really cleaned up his abode for him and had really made it tidy, there was no more dust and dirt in his abode now. She had even given him a spare clean bedding and dolled up the place with a beautiful curtain from her spatial ring. Shenlai looked astonished, "You have these in your spatial ring?" Nangong Shu smiled with great coyness, "It is just some old stuff that I have." Then she dreamily said, "I like to make my own bed and decorate my own room in the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. Even though I have servants to do that, but in the future I need to make it for my man. Do you not agree with me?" Shenlai nodded with awkwardness. His daily needs had always been taken by the 7 saintesses. Before that, he was a messy cultivator, although he did not see it that way. He did not really need to eat or drink at his cultivation realm and he could go on for days and weeks without any sleep. But he just did not want to clean his abode because this was actually harder work than cultivation in his mind. He was just being plain lazy and had suggested for Nangong Shu to clean his abode for him, and while she was initially surprised, she had helped him readily. Once everything was done, he had suddenly groped Nangong Shu in her flimsy bodice and had startled her. Then his hands were already moving down into her naked butt and he knew that she was not wearing anything in there. As he poked down below, he could feel the wetness of her holy land and Nangong Shu was flustered again. "Shenlai, what are you doing now?" Nangong Shu asked the obvious, but she did not stop him. Shenlai said as he looked at her with a kind and gentle affection, "You are so beautiful and kind to me. I have no way to repay you. Therefore, I like to." He had suddenly hugged Nangong Shu to him and was kissing her. First her lips, then her tongue next. Nangong Shu was gasping as she could feel his tongue exploring deep inside her mouth, and all of a sudden Shenlai had pulled down her bodice, stripping her naked once more. He had his hands on her firm breasts, her naked butt, and she could feel the hot flushes of her water as her inner thighs began to welcome the dripping flow of her mountain dews from her secret holy land once again. Shenlai had squeezed Nangong Shu's 2 bulging breasts into a shape as he removed his robe at the same time, and he had placed her hands on his budging little brother as well. Without a word, Nangong Shu instinctively kneeled down as she looked shyly at the thing that was in front of her. She then proceeded to massage it slowly, then shook the thing with her hands up and down. Shenlai gasped softly at this comfort and he began to put his thing into her mouth for her tongue to explore. Shenlai could feel her warmth and charming fragrance as she went faster and faster while holding on to him, and he could not resist wrapping his hands around her head to make her go deeper. After several hundreds of thrusts, Shenlai had exploded within her throat as he shouted softly, "I am coming." Nangong Shu had the intention of swallowing everything, but there was so much of his hot yang essence that she was forced to cough out his thick obscene liquid. This forced Shenlai to take his thing out and to spray his yang essence all over her face and head. But still there was so much that even her upper body was filled with his hot yang essence. Nangong Shu was shocked. It was because she had not expected for Shenlai to have so much yang essence, and earlier when they had copulated, there was not so much. She did not know Shenlai was controlling himself, as his definition of a depraved slave was his ultimate conquest of the 3 holy lands of a maiden. This caused Nangong Shu to flush and to fall even deeper in love with Shenlai. Obviously Shenlai could see the lusty heat in her golden eyes, and he had immediately pulled her to his bed to lie on her back. Then he had spread her naked white leg widely and to admire the wet scenery. "Maiden Nangong Shu, do you mind that we do it again?" Nangong Shu responded by maintaining her posture, too shy to say anything. Shenlai also responded by thrusting into the bud of her holy land, which was soft, smooth and charming, sending lewd juices to spurt continuously while he admired and played with her firm prideful twin peaks that stood up. For a long time, Nangong Shu lewd moaning could be heard loudly in the abode as she completely surrendered to Shenlai. Her pleasure was intense and her feeling for Shenlai was also real. For the very first time Shenlai was feeling guilty. I should have made her into a saintess of my Carnation Goddess painting instead of my depraved slave. I think with my help, in less than 200 years, she can be a saintess. I can afford to wait for another 200 years. If the 7 saintesses could hear Xianlai's thought, they would cripple his cultivation core a second time. One would have thought that Xianlai was someone who could practice the dark cultivation art and would turn another maiden into his depraved slave. However, in this aspect, he actually did not use any cultivation arts. His idea of a depraved slave actually was a non-cultivation term. He was actually too full of his own personal charm for that. Author note. 1. Thank you all. We've made it to the potential starlet now winky face. Congrats. Novel recommended on your hard work has paid off. Your book will be recommended on Chapter 19 Xianlai's first cultivation lesson. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Nangong Shu told Xianlai that it was time for her leave now as she still got an important matter to report to her saintess Xianxia, he was actually quite sad. It was because the naked Nangong Shu was really too coquettish and he was reluctant to let go of her. This is your abode, I know. And I will look for you whenever I'm free. Nangong Shu also had a most reluctant look as she said shyly to him. We still have many days ahead of us. I will guide you with your cultivation so that the two of us will be together forever. Upon seeing the still reluctant look in Xianlai's eyes, Nangong Shu smiled. Don't worry, I will be back. I'm not a loose maiden that will abandon you. Just as Xianlai was trying to protest that he had never thought of her as a loose maiden, she was gone. After Nangong Shu was gone, Xianlai was feeling quite lonely. But he soon brightened up at the outlook that it was going to be nightfall soon. It was because Xianlai knew that his saintess Xianxia would be visiting him soon when it was dark, and that was the solo purpose why she had arranged for him to be alone so that she would be his depraved slave. Just like saintess Xianxia knows him inside out, he also knows her inside out. She was just cold from the outside and inside, she was always so warm and accommodating to him. All of a sudden he was sighing heavily as he muttered softly, well, not so accommodating this time. Fian has actually give up her chance to become my Carnation Goddess. Of all the 7 saintesses, why her? For more than once, he had imagined his Feiyue to be his Carnation Goddess and never his depraved slave. But she actually wanted to be his depraved slave this time. Women are strange. No, women are all weird. He patiently waited for saintess Xianxia to arrive, knowing very well that she would definitely come as she did not want to break off with him. Night turned into dawn now. And saintess Xianxia did not even come. There was a deep sorrow in his heart now when he realized that she would not come. He realized now how wrong he was in knowing saintess Xianxia, and she had indeed changed from 100 years ago. Xianlai was now doubly woeful as he reported for duty in the outer court at dawn. Many of the protégé brothers and sisters were grinning at this new protégé brother, for he had almost got himself expulsed less than 1 week into the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. Elder Li Hong had gathered Shenli and 199 of his protégé brothers and sisters into the training ground. Then she said to them, now why you are all here? That is because you are all in the same cohort this year and you are horribly weak. Xianlai turned to look silently at his other 199 protégé brothers and sisters. Just because you all sucks, doesn't mean I suck. I shall ace this cohort and be the greatest cultivator in the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. Elder Li Hong was now lecturing them, you are all at the Qi condensation staging, and that is your current cultivation realm level. You are not at the foundation stage, so I won't be polite to you. All of you are actually cultivators in the Qi condensation cultivation level, and I will be expecting much more from all of you. All of a sudden she had frozen, and so did all the 200 protégés. It was because the peerless loveliness of the saintess Xianfeiyue were now lighting the training ground with her sudden grace, and she was accompanied by another breathtaking Nangong Shu next to her. A protégé could not resist muttering, and there was shock in his eyes, isn't that our saintess? And also her right protector Nangong Shu. This Nangong Shu is not only beautiful but is also a revolving core cultivator. She is in the top 12 extraordinary beautiful great beauty list along with Fairy Yu Yuan. Why is our saintess here? This is so unexpected. She is paying attention to insignificant ants like us. Elder Li Hong quickly greeted her saintess and she was followed by the 200 protégés. My saintess, what brings you here today? Saintess Xianxia smiled but her meaningful glances were looking at Shenlai instead. Shenlai was actually delighted to see both Xianxia and Nangong Shu. He thought. Are they here to see my performance? If so, I won't disappoint them. Saintess Xianxia smiled playfully, I am here to see how our new protégés are doing and also the trainings that they will be receiving. Elder Li Hong smiled spiritedly and she was thinking. Maybe I will soon be promoted to the inner court now. Farewell good. 4. Nothing protégés of the outer court. Saintess Xianxia smiled along with Nangong Shu, please continue. Pretend that we are not around. Shenlai saw that Saintess Xianxia and Nangong Shu were both looking at him with meaningful glances and his heart was pounding hard. They are both looking at me. This is bad. I can't handle both of them in bed together. Shenlai. Shenlai. Li Hong had suddenly startled him. Did you hear my question? What is the cultivation realm after the qi condensation? The answer was the bronze core and this cultivation realm was the dream of all the new protégés so it was an answer that everyone knows by heart. Elder Li Hong naturally knew that it was an easy question for everyone to answer and she was very sure that Shenlai would know the answer as well. And she would also score points in front of her saintess Xingfian. Shenlai blinked for a while before he answered slowly, Yuan Yin. Elder Li Hong. All the protégés. Saintess Xianxia, Nangong Shu. Everyone was held speechless by Shenlai's reply. When Saintess Xianxia had heard him, she felt like banging her head on a pillar and die on the spot. Nangong Shu was feeling so awkward for Shenlai. He is really weak in cultivation. Elder Li Hong awkwardly rebuked Shenlai, the cultivation stage after the qi condensation is the bronze core. Shenlai was feeling awkward too as though someone had just slapped him. He can't remember the lower cultivation realms too well because he had actually started off at a much higher cultivation realm in the past. Elder Li Hong could feel her back burning with great embarrassment because she knew that her saintess Xingfian was watching her from behind. She could only mutter weakly, let's go for the next cultivation lesson. Everyone, I want you to summon your qi to hit the puppet from 10 m away. Once you are able to do so with accuracy, this will be considered a pass for you. All 200 protégés were now mustering their qi cultivation profound energy to their swords as they tried to hit the puppet in front of them. Elder Li Hong said, for today's lesson, I need all of you to hit the puppets 3 times. In the future, it will be gradually increased to 10 times, and then 10 times in a row without a miss. This was not easy to do especially when the more times the new protégés were mustering their qi, the more exhausted that they would be. But hitting 3 times were easy for the 199 protégés for they did not need to hit their targets continuously. Moreover most of them had been practicing mustering their qi to hit a target from 10 m away even before they had joined the Holy Maiden Sanctuary. 10 m was their absolute limits. It was because most of them would not become a sword energy cultivator and become master of the profound energy called qi. But it was not important for them to become a sword energy cultivator. They were stronger at the lower levels but much weaker at the higher levels as their sword energy would no longer be useful to penetrate the profound aura of their foes, unless they could lay their hands on a divine sword of considerable power. After a while, all 199 protégés had all passed the qi cultivation lesson, save for one protégé and he was Shenlai. Shenlai had raised his sword repeatedly in whoosh, his sword energy would flash left or right and missed his target. He was stunned, this is impossible, is my sword playing punk with me? And he felt like raising his cultivation realm to blow up this stupid puppet in front of him. Elder Li Hong could only watch Shenlai with a most awkward expression. Even Nangong Shu was covering her face shamefully. Is this the man of my heart? But Saintess Xianxia was laughing silently. It was because she knew that Shenlai was just a bookworm and he truly sucked in his martial training. She could still remember vividly how the 7 sister saintesses had ganged up on Shenlai on that fateful day. Author note. 1. Shenlai is the most unusual MC. 2. One more day and the story will be 7 days old. Readers will be able to see the chapters per week. Not bad, for we have 19 chapters in 6 days, smiley face. Chapter 20. Guess who is it? You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Shenlai had returned to his own abode, he felt defeated, and in fact, he had been defeated by the first chi cultivation lesson. All in all, he had made more than 300 strikes and had only hit the puppet only once. It was due purely to good luck. Instead of being so awesome in front of Saintess Xianxia and Nangong Shu, he had looked awkward and was even the mockery of his 199 fellow protégés. He had been given a nick, and it was the hopeless cultivator Shenlai. As he sighed softly in his bed, all of a sudden there was a soft knock on his door. Who will it be? Don't tell me that I'm being visited by a demonic cultivator. Maybe it is Nangong Shu. Or it is Elder Xianxia. He was suddenly delighted because he had thought that it may be Nangong Shu and she was here to comfort him. So he quickly opened the door because there was 33% chance that it may be a demonic cultivator, 33% that it may be Xianxia, and 33% chance that it may be Nangong Shu. And he strongly believed in his good luck that it would surely be the other 66% and not the 33% chance. Either Xianxia or Nangong Shu was good for him. So when he opened the door, he was quite startled that it was actually Saintess Xianxia and she was smiling at him. Fian. Why are you here? Shenlai was truly surprised. It was because she was actually out of his calculations. But he was instantly glad. His Feiyue was not so heartless after all. Saintess Xianxia rolled her beautiful golden eyes as she chuckled softly. Why? You do not welcome me, or are you blaming me for not coming yesterday? I have actually wanted to visit you yesterday, but I was just too busy. Are you angry with me? Shenlai was actually delighted to see her again. Feiyue, please come in. Why are you so polite in my presence? It was as though he was the master and she was still his saintess, just like the old good days. Saintess Xianxia chuckled softly as she stepped into his abode and was startled. You clean up this place yourself? Shenlai laughed softly. Who else can it be? Saintess Xianxia walked around for a while before she gasped with disbelief. Nowadays even pigs can fly. Shenlai frowned softly. I'm not a pig. Saintess Xianxia chuckled with great loveliness before she took a laudable look at Shenlai. You know, your performance today is so typical and funny. You have absolutely zero talent in fighting. Shenlai frowned. I don't need to be good in martial arts. That is too low for me to waste time on. Saintess Xianxia covered her mouth to giggle. Even if you want to spend your time to learn a martial art, you won't be able to learn it. Have you forgotten about it? Shenlai laughed awkwardly. Let's not talk about the past. Why are you here? Saintess Xianxia smiled coquettishly. Shenlai, why are you so shameless? You obviously want me to come, but yet you have pretended to ask me why did I come. Shenlai began to laugh awkwardly. Why should I know why you are here? Saintess Xianxia had suddenly thrown herself into his embrace as she said with great coyness, I've come to continue our 3 days and 3 nights affair. Are you willing? Shenlai was surprised. I have not earned 1,000 contribution points yet. Saintess Xianxia giggled as she whispered in his chest, we can have a night of passion, but you would have to owe me 1,000 contribution points first. What do you say? Shenlai was immediately spirited. You mean I can have you now instead of later? Saintess Xianxia nodded slowly and with great shyness. That's right. Shenlai was absolutely delighted when he had heard this, and he was immediately looking at her flimsy robe and imagining what was within it. Saintess Xianxia was also delighted. It was because her plan was to trick Shenlai to stay in her holy maiden sanctuary and to pile him with a huge mountain of debt in the form of contribution points. She winked at him while thinking coyly. There are simply no free lunches in this world or any worlds. Shenlai was already breathing hard as he could feel Saintess Xianxia's pressed bosoms on him, and it was too much for him to bear. In the past, when he did not copulate with her, he had plenty of willpower, but after tasting the forbidden fruit and the feeling of being inside her, he could no longer resist her seductive charms. Also, when he saw Saintess Xianxia and Nangong Shu earlier, he was already recalling their time together. His fingers were already on her hips and he was pulling her flimsy robe off. He was suddenly gasping when he saw that she was not wearing anything inside her robe as she exposed her perky tits and the front of her scenery to him. He quickly took off his robe and everything else because he wanted to feel her wetness below. Saintess Xianxia said coyly to him, "Shenlai, lift me to your bed." Shenlai did not hesitate at all as he lifted her into his arms. "All right. Do you know that this is the first time that you have ever lifted me like this?" Saintess Xianxia lowered her glances to say quietly. This had been her dreams for hundreds of years. Shenlai dreamily said, "Is it? I've always felt intimate to my Feiyue and thought that I may have done so many times already." Ha! Saintess Xianxia sighed softly, "That is when I am only a young maiden. You used to carry me like this, but now I am grown up and you have never carried me like this again." Shenlai laughed softly, "That is because you have other sister saintesses with you. I have to be very fair." Saintess Xianxia bended her face to his naked embrace. "For a time, I've thought that I am the most blessed maiden, for I have 6 sisters with me, but I've realized this isn't what I want actually. I just want you." "Is that possible?" Shenlai hesitated by pausing for a while before he said, "That is impossible now. You are not the saintess of my Carnation Goddess painting anymore, so therefore you can't be my one and only Carnation Goddess. You have lost the right now and eventually I don't belong to you." There were woeful expressions on Saintess Xianxia as she looked at him. She knew that Shenlai was single-minded when he had set his mind on something and there was nothing that she could do to dissuade him. But for Shenlai, she was willing to be scheming, ruthless and even despicable to lay her hands on him because that was her lifelong dream. Also, she knew another of Shenlai's secret. There was a dark side to Shenlai which only she knew, and that was when she was still a very young maiden. That was because they had once been surrounded by a group of powerful desolate beasts. In order to protect her, the usual gentleman demeanor of the bookworm Shenlai was broken and he had transformed into a vengeful cultivator. That was the only time that she had ever seen him losing his temper, and not even when the 7 saintesses had attacked him did he ever lose his gentle demeanor. She knew that Shenlai was actually able to fight when he wants to, but he had suppressed his memories. It was only when he was desperate to save her that he had lost his cool. As she was only a very young maiden back then and not yet a cultivator, Shenlai had thought that she could not remember this. Until today, she still had no idea who Shenlai was or his real age. He would always refuse to answer this question as though this was a super deadly secret of his. He would always tell her that he was very young and not much older than her. This was a plain lie naturally, and no one would believe in his ghost story. At least not for her. But Saintess Xianxia knew that he had existed 10,000 years ago because there was a dumb cultivator that fits his description, and that was the mythical Grand Sage Saint. This part of the history, she had only got it after she had left Shenlai 100 years ago. It was actually impossible for any cultivator to be alive after 10,000 years ago unless they could find a way to the immortal realm. But Shenlai seemed to find a way and he was refusing to tell anyone. Shenlai had suddenly put her down on the bed and he had spreaded her legs widely to admire. "Feiyue, shall we play an exciting game together?" Saintess Xianxia was startled with curiosity as she quickly banished away her thoughts. "What game?" Author note. 1. GZ readers. We got a new notice today. Congrats. Novel recommended on your hard work has paid off. Your book will be recommended on